Good evening. I'm William Introligator, music director and conductor of the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra, welcoming you to another installment of our Virtuoso. Today, I'm joined by one of our wonderful violinists, Stephanie Garvey. Stephanie, welcome.
Thank you.
Stephanie, remind us, how long have you been a member of the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra?
Since 2008.
Oh, we kind of started around the same time. I thought you were there a long time before me, actually.
No, you and Stacy auditioned me. I actually remember.
Wow, that is so cool. Neat. Well, you're such a great part of the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra. You're always involved. I remember you being involved judging auditions, even in those early on in your tenure there, which is great. You're involved in the orchestra committee and in many other ways with the orchestra. We're very excited about that. And thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing some of your music from your home. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, when you started playing violin, things like that.
Okay, and thank you for having me. It's actually really cool that you guys are doing this. They're great opportunities, so you feel like you can still sing your voice even at home. Yeah. So I started playing violin at 4. My mom wanted me to play piano, and I refused. I used to sit at the piano and I wouldn't move and I wouldn't play even a note. So she finally gave up one day and got me the violin that I kept bugging her about. I loved it. I mean, I remember the first time I heard the violin. I remember the dress I was wearing.
Wow.
Because we had argued that morning, I didn't want to wear that dress. And so then I liked the dress after I'd heard the violin because I loved them both. And I was 4 when I first heard the violin, and it was a fiddle piece that she played. And it was the coolest piece I've ever heard. It was awesome. She was fantastic. And that was because we lived in, Denver at that time. And then we moved to Chicago, and I kept playing, and then back to Denver.
That's so great. I wonder if that somehow informed the fact that you have always had a foot in different camps of styles of music, I think, right? Like you've...
Probably, but my parents also, my parents had me when they were a little bit older, so I think they just liked a whole bunch of styles of music as well. And my dad had gone to IU, so he loved all the different styles that they played, and they offered so many, and so I think he just got into everything. He loved them all. And so I grew up just listening to everything, and old music and new music, and but yes, I've always loved it, and I started playing electric rock violin at 15.
Wow, you are so cool.
I don't know that I've ever been cool, but I really loved it.
Wow.
I loved playing by ear and getting to write my own part. I think that was really joyful. I love playing classical because I feel like my voice can be heard, and like the way that I feel can come out, and it can be so beautiful and so sassy and so bratty and so serious. And I love that. But I also loved playing by ear in a rock band because you can write your own part and you can be super creative and no one tells you you're wrong.
Hey, I know. That's so cool. How long were you playing in a rock band?
Oh, since 15.
Like continuously, like you've been in... Oh, I knew that I thought maybe you dabbled in it, like, or you did it and then you took a break or something.
No. Oh, no.
Cool.
I love it.
Oh.
So fiddle music, I kind of go in and out of, mainly because I get a little bit busy with my kids and family. And I think I like rock a little bit better because you play on the electric violin and you can be creative. And so I don't know, I really like rock. But I dabble in country off and on.
Oh, that's so great.
Yes.
And then you, just a year or two ago, you came out with a beautiful classical CD with like the Beethoven Spring Sonata and the Meditation from Thais, right?
Yes. Recorded my favorite music, even though they're the more common pieces.
Oh, sure.
And one of my dad's favorite songs is Meditation from Thais, and he liked it really high. So that's why we changed it and played it really high at the end.
Oh,
that was for him.
To it. Yeah, that's so special. And then, so you live outside of Denver, is that right? And you've got your husband and kids, and are they involved in music at all?
Kind of, yeah. We live I think our address still comes up as Denver, but we're in Lakewood, which
nice.
would be slightly outside. But yes, I have my 2 boys and Nathan supposedly plays saxophone. I've known him 25 years and he's never played for me, but apparently he'll play for our kids. So I've never heard him.
Oh, wow, fun. Oh, wow.
But I used to bribe him and buy him reeds. And I was like, just play me like a scale, just something. I mean, 25 years, I've never heard him play. So
probably intimidated because you're such a talented professional musician.
I think that's what he says, but I don't know. But my boys play. I started them both on violin. I have a 1/64. It's so cute. They don't even make them anymore. It's like a toy.
I've never even heard of a 1/64th. You know, for our listeners out there who don't know about this, when you're too young to play a full-size violin, you can play a half size or a quarter size or an eighth size. Yeah. I have heard of a 16th. I've never heard of a 64th size. It's like a tree ornament.
It is. It's so cute. My mom's like, you can never sell that. She's like, it's just adorable. I found it on Craigslist.
Wow.
It was just kind of a one-off. I think someone made it for some strange reason, or there was a time, but it plays really well. I mean, so I started my boys, let's see, Josh was 19 months and Isaiah was 2.5 on violin, and they were good. And then one day both of them didn't want to play. Oh. And my mom just showed up about a week later with the piano at my front door. And she said, I really think Josh is going to play the piano, so I got you one. I was like, okay. So we brought it in and he loved it. So he started piano at 2.5. And Isaiah, because my boys come to my concerts in Denver, my rock concerts and the concerts up there. And so Isaiah used to hold his hands up and go, "Ello, ello, ello." And we didn't know what he was doing because he was like 3. And he wasn't a big talker. He's very smart. He's just he's still very quiet. And we finally figured out it was cello. So he started cello at 4.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So you mentioned about all the different places where you play. Tell us a little bit about the different organizations, if you play in other orchestras, or the name of your rock band, or other groups that you're playing in currently.
So I currently play with Colorado Council of Churches, and they do just a couple of things every year. I really love that organization because it's just a bunch of churches that come together, and I'm a musical worship leader for them. And they do things, celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. Day and kind of bringing people in the community together. And they do like Easter services. So they don't do a ton every year, but I think I love that it's so many different churches and denominations that come together for a cause to, be kind to humanity and really build it up.
Wonderful.
So I do that. And I was just on Channel 7. They interviewed me for that. Cool. So that was fun. Yeah. And since Red Rocks Amphitheater was closed this year, I got to record, and they did their online service. I also play at Mission Hills Church and a couple of other churches. And then I kind of do work for other rock bands and will do violin parts on them. And then the main orchestra I play with is Cheyenne Symphony, but I also play in New Mexico and Colorado as well.
Wow.
Oh, cool. I travel a little bit, but not too much. And my family usually comes. So it's kind of nice.
Well, we always enjoy seeing them in the green room after our concerts in Cheyenne. Yeah,
that's when they're well behaved.
Yeah.
We bribe them.
Cookies there, right?
Right.
We always love the cookies. So tell us a little bit about what you're going to play for us today and the instrument you're going to play it on.
Yes. So when I was 16, my dad drove me to a class up at Colorado Symphony. They had this convention, or just this class that like a week-long camp thing is maybe what I'm thinking. And one of the people there back in the day, it was a long time ago, made violins. And so he had a class on it, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. So ever since then, I wanted to make them. And it wasn't until my 20s that I had the opportunity to kind of have access to a woodworking studio, because the equipment takes up a lot of space and it can be very dusty. And so it's hard to do in a home. And so I started making violins, and I made a butterfly violin, which I've always wanted. My 2 favorite animals are butterflies and zebras. So I made a butterfly violin with a zebra pattern. And then of course you have to play the Butterfly Lovers Violin Concerto, because it makes complete sense. So that was actually how I picked the piece. I'd known about the piece, but just specifically had to play it on this. And I modified it slightly because I only make 5-string violins. I played viola for over a decade and I loved it. And so I feel like I get the C string in with the 5-string, and I can still feel, you know, somewhat akin to a viola player.
Right.
But
So since the concerto was written for a violin, do you actually go down? You said you rewrote some of it. You rewrote some of it to go down and use that lower string?
a little bit.
Oh,
I
that's
didn't want to take away from what they had written because it was so beautiful. I loved the piece. But yes, I did just a little touch here and there. So, and I didn't use any crazy pedals because I have 6 pedals that can alter the sound. So I just kept it a little more straightforward.
So this is an electric violin that you actually made. It's
Yeah.
shaped like a butterfly, and you're playing the Butterfly Lovers Violin Concerto, right?
Yes.
That is so cool.
I can
Wow.
show you the violin right now if you'd like.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
So,
Oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
thank you.
Oh, it's also kind of intense. I see that zebra pattern in there too.
Yeah, and it's a double, so it has double wings. Um, and I had a special pickup made. So it actually is a pickup on every single string,
Oh,
because the only complaint I have with electric violins is that you lose one of the strings, because you know it's, especially with a 5-string, there's usually only 2 connectors on the bridge. And so you always have a couple strings that you have to either play louder on or really think about when you're playing so that the sound is even. But I asked him if he would make me a special one. So there's a connector on every single string, and it's about 5-ish millimeters below each string. So they all are the same. I love it.
that's great.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't wait to hear you play this. Is there any other background behind this piece that you want to share? Why it's called the Butterfly Lovers, or anything that like that, or what it means to you maybe?
Yeah, I could even do a little bit of both. So if I have the story completely correct, back in the day in China, women weren't allowed to go, or girls weren't allowed to go to school. And so there was a particular girl that dressed up as a boy and went to school so she could learn. And she fell in love with another boy there, but the boy didn't know she was a girl.
Right.
And so she kept dropping hints and hint after hint. And he just did not get it at all. So the girl's father called her back home and he said, I have somebody for you to marry, because back then traditionally they were arranged marriages.
Right.
And she didn't want to go back home. So she eventually did, but she was very rebellious and didn't want to. She wanted to stay in school and she wanted to learn. And so she goes back home, gets betrothed to this other man. And then the boy meets her and realizes she's a girl, but she's betrothed. And then and the story progresses very quickly, because it was somewhat, I want to say like 2 weeks later, he passed away from some mysterious virus.
No.
So she goes to his tomb or his grave, and she's of course upset. And then the grave opens and she jumps inside of it and dies with him. And then they emerge as butterflies.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So right, it's a very intense, quick moving story, and they emerge as butterflies and fly off together. Very Romeo and Juliet, live their second life as a pair. So that's a little bit sad.
So I think, is it right that that's a sort of a more well-known maybe Chinese folk story, and then the composer wrote this violin concerto inspired by that story? Is that how
Yes. It was written by 2 college violinists that got together and wrote the piece. And they wrote it off of that story. So a lot of their themes, like da, 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 kind of go through it. And then there's the rebellious theme. It's kind of funny. You can actually pick up the themes, and when you know how it fits into the story, you can really hear how she was feeling at the time, which to me, as I said, I really love how classical music can bring out all the different emotions. So I think that's cool, even though the story is kind of sad.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool how they wrote it to be so emotional and to follow so intricately what was happening.
Right. Well, you know, I'm just thinking, I can't wait to hear you play that piece. And I'm also thinking, gee, since you're playing your electric violin, we might have to have you back on this another time just to show us what you can do with like your rock and roll chops and improvising.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I mean, I love it all. That would be great.
No, that would be so cool for our audience members who are used to seeing you in the orchestra and then can hear you today. Is there anything else you want to share before we get into the music?
No, I think that kind of covers it with that piece and everything. But I love this piece. It's a really fun piece. I thought it was really cool. So
we can't wait to hear you play it. Now, you're not going to be able to perform the entire concerto because of our little time limitations, but you mentioned there's sort of like an introduction and first movement. Sort of sounds like 3 movements, you said, right?
It kind of does. I mean, as a listener, I would hear it as 3 movements, but I think in truth, it's kind of an introduction, and that kind of is part of the first movement. And then there is a very distinct second movement, which is very slow. And I maybe changed the tempo a tiny bit. I play it just a little bit on the slower side. I just thought it was so beautiful and heartfelt.
That's great.
So, yes.
And then you'll be joined by your collaborative pianist who you've worked with many times, Anna Arzumanyan, right? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name quite right.
That's pretty close. Yeah, no, I played with her. I've known her, I want to say 15 or 16 years. We met up at DU in college, and she's fantastic. So yes, whenever possible, I always use her.
Let's get right into it now. We'll hear Stephanie Garvey and Anna Arzumanyan performing portions of the Butterfly. Tell me the exact title of the piece again. Is it Butterfly Lovers?
Yeah, Butterfly Lovers Violin Concerto. You've got it. That's all it is.
All right, take it away. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Wow. The Butterfly Lovers Violin Concerto on your electric violin that you actually made yourself, shaped like a butterfly. We're so fortunate to have such talent in the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra. Stephanie, thank you so much for being a big part of the orchestra and being our featured virtuoso tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really great that you guys are, still putting us on and letting us play and express ourselves, even during these unprecedented times. And I love that Cheyenne has really supported social distancing and keeping people safe. They've really put us first in that, and I love that. And I truly hope everybody else is safe and happy and healthy, and that you can find beautiful joy and wonderful music from home.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. I know Stephanie feels as I do that we can't wait to have a live performance with you, our audience, in the audience again. We love making music together. We love making music for our audience in Cheyenne, and there's a really special connection that we have on stage. And as soon as we're able, we're gonna try. We're gonna try to do it, even if we have to be socially distanced on stage or in an outdoor venue or something like that, right, Stephanie?
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I mean, we're creative people. We've got this.
Exactly. Well, this has been also a great opportunity, not just to feature our musicians and their musical talent, but to get to know them better. And Stephanie, it's been a great glimpse into your background and your interests and passions with music. Thank you again for doing this.
Thank you so much for having us do this and for giving me the opportunity. It's been really special and fun.
Yeah. All right. Good night, everybody.